Welcome to Cooking the Books. I'm Frances Cook. We've all seen the news about how the economy is bouncing back faster than expected, and businesses are feeling cautiously optimistic about the future post-COVID-19, which is wonderful news, not least because it means an opportunity for the rest of us to get a piece of the pie. Many workers were asked to take a pay cut for part of last year, and after taking one for the team, can't be blamed for looking to get a piece of the good times too. The rebound means there are new opportunities around for interesting jobs, and that often comes with the bonus of being paid more. The job market can be a bit of a miserable and unsettling experience, though, and there's definitely an art to doing it well. So, here's how to find those great jobs. Make sure you get a good pay rate too.
News Talk ZB presents Cooking the Books with Frances Cook.
I'm joined now by Simon Rooney from Find Recruitment. Now, in general, are there many job openings at the moment? And what sort of fields are we talking? What sort of areas are doing well?
Good question, Francis. I would say there are numerous job openings, and it's right across all the different sectors that we might recruit in or others would recruit in. Certainly, job boards are reporting that all the different sectors that they have agencies or employers advertising directly with are near on record highs, and some are at record highs. So whether that's construction, FMCG, engineering, banking, services, professional services, legal, right across, it is certainly a near on buoyant market. So yes, it is quite a good market at the moment.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like this time last year, we were rightly freaking out a bit about how things were going. Even in October, some of the predictions we were seeing were nowhere near as positive as things have turned out. What do you get any feedback from companies about how they're feeling about the hiring process and how comfortable they are in hiring new people right now?
So March, April of last year, we really hit that COVID brick wall. A lot of the uncertainty. I think most employers took the right steps, and didn't cut back too much from all the clients that we have been dealing with, and we deal with some small, mid-sized, right through to the larger corporates, and everyone is very busy, and everyone's very busy because the market has picked up far more than what we thought it would be, or economists might have projected. Through to possibly they were a little bit lighter on talent in their teams as well, so they're having to rehire. Their workloads have gotten bigger. People might have been adjusting from working in the office to working from home, and now that everyone's up and running on that side as well. But overall, there is a lot of confidence out there, and whether it's in the legal field or whether it's in the construction, building related field, engineering, things are moving ahead and at some pace. So everyone's feeling business confidence from the feedback that we get with all the different clients we deal with is at a high.
Yeah. Okay. So if an employee is looking at this and they're thinking, okay, well, now's my time. It's looking better than it has in quite a while. What are some good ways, if there are some employers that you are interested in approaching, what are good ways to get a foot in the door?
So if they're looking at changing jobs and looking at a particular, say, shortlist of potential other employers that they'd like to join, there's a couple of different ways. So naturally, do your research, have a look at their website. They would more than likely, if they're a certain size, have a job page, sign up for job alerts that might be coming through there as well. Maybe check on LinkedIn, see if there's any ex-colleagues that they might know that are working there as well, to get some insight and an expression of interest that you're interested in joining that particular company. Because not all roles might be advertised. You could even approach a potential hiring manager direct, or you might know of a recruitment agency that deals with those particular companies, and they'll be able to give you the insight into the people, their growth plans, the culture, what's happening within there, what the benefits are for working in that such organisation as well. And then on the job alerts, you probably get that posted through to you every day or every couple of days as well.
I think that's such a good point there about talk to anyone who works there if you can, because that's how you get the good goss on. Some companies can look very good from the outside and it's maybe a little different to work for them. Or it can be the opposite. You might look at a company and be like, I'm not very sure. And then you talk to people who work there and they're like, we love it. They are so good to us. They treat us so well. So I think getting the inside word from anyone you can who works there can be really helpful. And also, like you say, so many jobs aren't advertised, right? So they can sort of get you those conversations of, oh, we have a little bit going here, or we were thinking of hiring on that. When you mentioned about approaching a hiring manager, I think that's also a really good point. How do you find those people, and how would you approach them?
Well, if you know, say, a recruitment agent or agency that works with that company, you could approach them, register with them, and they would be able to approach them on your behalf as well. Certainly, if you have a skill set you think that's in demand, or you might hear through working in that same industry where there is a growth and they might need someone like yourself. Or you could just put in that company's name on LinkedIn, and it would show the employees that work there as well, and then be strategic, and you could approach them direct with a polite email, just outlining what you're doing and what you're wanting to do, and how you could be of an asset to the organisation. Could be one way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, use the tools that are at your disposal, right?
Mm.
I mean, I think for those jobs that are advertised, if you see something come up and you're like, "Ooh, that could be a bit of me," obviously you're going to have to apply then the traditional way. And one thing that I hear from people all the time is that CVs give them a lot of anxiety, and putting that best foot forward in written form freaks people out. So how important is the sort of CV cover letter duo? What should you make sure you've got in them? How do you put your best foot forward in that first instance?
Well, yeah, first impressions certainly count. CV is very important. Like there is that bit of anxiety about, do I have to do this, or when am I going to find the time to do that? We really actively encourage our candidates to sit down, maybe some quiet time, and set aside what they've actually done for the year. So on the CV front, it's just like ripping off that plastic and just getting it done. It is really that ticket to a new opportunity, a new job, some further freedom or financial freedom, and an enjoyable part in the next number of years if you were to be successful getting a new career. So it's that ticket in that regard. Or tips on the CV: make sure that it's nice and clean and easy to read. Some people put photos on. We encourage candidates not to put their photos on. It's not needed. Set aside the responsibilities, reflect, think what you've achieved, and write those. And it can take some time. If you might have a formal appraisals, you can refer back to work that part. Responsibilities could be looked at on what's on your job description. Don't do a cut and paste straight over. Put it into your own words. This is what I've done, and I work on these parts as well, the responsibility part too. And even interests outside of work. It shows what you do, what you might have an interest in, or other achievements. If you happen to be a chairperson of a certain board, or involved in a community group, or you quite enjoy swimming or sailing or football or rugby, put that into maybe the club. It'll also help with an interest that might be on the same level as the hiring manager too. When you refer to cover letters, that's really your intent of what you're looking for, and why you're wanting to look around, and what you'll be able to bring to that organisation too. So that helps supplement what's in the CV. So both are really important. And when you think about it, it could be not to be done during work time. It's an hour or two after dinner, when you can have some quiet time in a room or bedroom, and just set that aside. And it is well worth investing in for your future.
Yeah, how much should those bits of documentation, your CV, your cover letter, how much should they respond to the job ad itself? How much do you tailor them to each application? Because I remember having a conversation with someone, and this was a while ago now, so it absolutely could have changed. I'd love you to tell me if it has. And they said, oh, people used to list every job they'd ever had and the best hits from that job. But now what we like to see is list obviously all the recent jobs, but tailor everything to this particular application. Tell us how it's relevant, and really only go into those points that are relevant to us. Now, is that still the case? Should you be really changing for each application your CV cover letter? How much detail should you go into? How do we work that?
So, good question. I think if you started with how long should my CV be? So someone's career could be just a couple of years through to maybe 20, 30 plus. So if we're looking at a longer career, you would still want to keep that CV to 3 pages, possibly 4 at the most, but ideally it's a 2 to 3 page CV, regardless of how long you've had a career. So to do that, the work that you've done maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, if that's the case, will be less relevant naturally, and so should be just shortened down to the company and to the job title that you had there, right up until the most recent 10 years or so last 2 to 3 roles that you would have had. And that there should reflect what you've done, but possibly, and we do encourage candidates to highlight the parts that would be suitable for this particular job that they'd like to apply for. And particularly if it's quite a technically focused role, certain skill sets that's needed, you want to make sure that they're shown in the CV. So that if the hiring manager or the recruitment agency or HR have a number of applications, they can see, oh, this person has actually done that piece of work, or they do have that skill set that we are actually looking for. So yeah, you might have to keep tweaking your CV depending on the different jobs that you might be applying for. But again, it really is time well invested.
And then the cover letter, I feel like I'm putting myself out here a little. Tell me if I'm doing it wrong. But the cover letter tends to be where I would go into more depth in terms of exactly how this applies to the job. Would that be how you would recommend it too?
I would, and yes, I would, and yeah, actually a really good point. It would be in the cover letter as well. What I would say from experience, we have seen sometimes a generic cover letter used, and it would be sent to, say, myself, and instead of saying, "Dear Simon," it might be "Dear," and the last person that they had sent that cover letter through, or "Dear HR team," or "Dear that company." So, you want to have someone vetting and reading through your cover letter and reading through your CV with fresh eyes, or if English is your second language, it's someone that's able to work through, making sure that there's no grammar or spelling mistakes in the CV or cover letter as well, because it goes back to that first impressions count. And if attention to detail is one of the key parts of the role that you're applying for, and you put in a number of spelling mistakes, or you might put on American spelling, making sure that it is right and it's addressed to the right company and to the right person within that company. Well.
Yeah, absolutely. And changing job, that's often seen as the best time to negotiate a bigger salary, right? I mean, you can argue for a bigger salary when you're within a company, but it often comes down to when you change job, that can be when you can make big moves in how much you're paid. So at what point in the recruitment process do you even start that conversation? When is appropriate?
Yeah, there's different ways that you might be approaching applying for a job. So if we talk, say, through an agency, through HR or direct, okay? So if you looked at through an agency, the agency would have more or less a good partnership, that they've worked with that company for many years. They would have placed people there before, and they would know the salary banding and what this role is, and they'd also know what you should be worth out in the marketplace. While it is a relatively buoyant market and a competitive market, there is still a cap really applied on salary, and the bandings might apply as well. And they couldn't have someone overshot and on so much more money than other people in their team. It just puts things out of sync. So there is still a cap on that side. The recruitment agent will be able to give you some really good, robust advice, right down to probably the last 5 or 10,000, how accurate your expectations are in the marketplace, whether they're under or over. Have a good conversation with that, what this role is paying. If it was HR, they'd also have a good, they would be sitting in that banding and have that understanding there, and then direct as well. So when's the best time? If it's not through HR giving you some advice and guidance, or the recruitment agent, it would normally be that second or third interview, that the conversation around money and what you might be looking for. There are certainly increases when people have been moving, and we've noticed that in the last 6 months. Not massive increases across every sector, every field, but there have been definitely increases. What has been really gone right the way up to the top of the list is the work-life balance, the ability to work from anywhere or work from home. That's come right at the top. We have seen people moving for the same or an incremental increase, but they are working where an employer has been a little bit old school, shall we say, and flat out refused to have anyone working from home, even through some of the levels of lockdowns when they could. But old school, like you need to be in at a certain time and leaving at a certain time. They're losing some really good people from other employers. competitors offering just that. You've got to have that trusted environment, that adult grown-up environment, and people find that at home they can work in a quiet environment, they can get on things really well, and they really enjoy being back in the office for the culture, for the interaction, for the water cooler talking as well, for the catch-ups, the social side of it as well, and then that teamwork, and then gelling, and then continue on that side. So that is almost as important as a, or if not as important as a salary increase when you are looking at moving, is what the benefits are too, and the career progression that you might receive if moving to.
Well, exactly. I feel like that's something that gets overlooked in these salary negotiations. And I think you want to look at money in a sort of general, holistic way, especially at a time like this where things are rebounding a lot, but a lot of companies, I think, while they're feeling optimistic, are still sort of cautiously optimistic. Like, we're still mid-vaccine rollout. We're still figuring out what to next. And so if you can look at it holistically and say, okay, I might want to get paid more, but also, is there something that can be done, like you say, the work-life balance, but also a lot of that work-life balance will save you money. So it might not cost the company anything apart from trust, but it would save you substantial amounts, things like working from home or being allowed to work from a different city where house prices might be cheaper. If you are able to reduce your costs substantially, then you don't need that pay rise, or you don't need as big of a pay rise. You still always want to be paid market rate, but you can make these conversations, I think, really productive from both sides when you're willing to talk about a wide range of things, and different companies can give different benefits. They might be able to give you more equipment, like you say, or maybe some training, some career progression, something that's valuable to you. Working from home cuts out your transport. All of those things are really valuable and really worth including in that conversation, right? Just to say what could be done on this front.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going further and further up. And then we have someone that works for us remotely, and we've been able to entertain that very much on a near full-time basis. And she's able to come up 1 or 2 days every 2 weeks as well. And that was even pre to COVID, that happening there too. You save on your commute into a CBD, wherever you might be. And others are working just 1 or 2 days in the office and able to move outside of maybe an expensive city and buy the home that they want to outside of that part. But Zoom and all things internet, it's a wonderful thing, and we're making more and more use of it. And so are the clients are really picking it up as well, wanting to do that too. And then you go back to your work-life balance part, is that instead of spending an hour and a half each way and commuting, you'd be up going for a walk along the beach, go for a run, drop those kids off, able to pick them back up, jump back on, continue on that work as well. And that's really rewarding. And that will actually hold employees for longer too, coupled with those that will actually, if they're not able to have that flexibility, given in a number of different ways, will move potentially for that as well. We've seen, and we've done this ourselves, is introduction of a wellness day once a quarter. So if you're feeling blue, you're feeling a little bit run down, you'll come through and feel real fatigue from COVID. And it could be financial stresses, could be just the uncertainty, the ups and downs, that roller coaster that we've all experienced the last 12 months. Is that if you're feeling that you need that day off, you just text in and just please take that day off, and we'll cover that work so you're feeling nice and refreshed, rather than getting really run down, and no one wants that at all. Yeah.
That's a really good idea, because I feel like after the year that we've had, so many people that I talk to are feeling that burnout, and just feeling a bit like, there's been stresses on the work front, there's been stresses on the personal front. You might have family overseas who are struggling. That there's been a lot to think about, and I think it, as well as you can deal with it, it does pile up on people after a while. And I think the wellness day is a great idea just for having, but it also is quite it's also a way of showing your employees that you are aware they're dealing with these things and that you give a damn. And I think that can almost be as important as the wellness day itself. That sort of token of good faith from an employer, that can be really important to employees, right?
Oh, look, we've had a really good uptake on that, and we've actively encouraged everyone in the company to take those particular days. It's a once a quarter. We do it as a use it or lose it, but we really would like people to use it rather than not. We don't know what stresses might be happening outside of work. We can see what might be happening in work, and people react to different things in different ways. So we really want to look after our people, and good employers want to as well. Others also, and we do offer gym membership or a membership where it could be up to a certain amount a month or a quarter, and it doesn't necessarily need to be going to the gym. It could go to a football club membership. It could be a particular fitness app that you want to have on your phone and pay for, so you can do your workouts in price of your own home, etc. as well. It's just getting those endorphins working and flowing as well. So if you're sitting somewhere where my employer doesn't or isn't or refuses to offer some of these benefits, trust me, there are a lot of really good employers out there that are forward thinking, that are offering that. They want a really good, happy workforce. Happy workforce is a very productive workforce, and it's a fun workforce, but it's a professional workforce as well. And you get a really good team that are really enjoying their time coming into work and knowing that they've been looked after and genuinely cared for as well. A lot of places offer your Southern Cross benefits too. So this is another kind of nice ones that have a very low cost to the employer, massive positive benefits. I'd actively encourage any employers to do that, and any job seekers, as we discussed about that, is to ask around those questions: is what's the soft benefits that come with just the job, that salary, and you talk about that career progression at the entry stages. It's asking about the benefits too, which is becoming more and more important for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's often a lot of anxiety for people around that negotiation process, right? Because like you say, it might be around interview 2 or 3, or you might have been offered the job and now's the time to negotiate. And a lot of people worry about the best way to have that negotiation so that it's constructive, so that you don't burn that relationship before you even get in the door. And you see a lot of research around that, particularly, women can be penalized, seen as being stroppy when they try to negotiate rather than just trying to negotiate a good deal for themselves. So what are good tactics so that you have this conversation and you get a good deal for yourself, which is important because it might be something you rely on for years to come. But, also keeping that a good working relationship, considering that we spend most of our waking hours at work.
Yeah, we certainly do. We can spend more time at work than we can with our partners. And then you go into that particular salary, and then there can be incremental increases, maybe inflation plus tied to if it's not a promotion from within that employer. I think if you were using a recruitment agent, then they would know what that job banding has been paid and would be upfront about that. But when they send you a CV forward, they'd have a good, robust conversation around what your expectations are, and hopefully that does match, and would put you forward at what those salary expectations are. So for you, well, how do I find what my expectations should be? I would encourage you to do some research. There are a lot of salary surveys. Sometimes it could be a wide band to the role that you are doing as well. So look at a number of different salary surveys that are out there to get a real feel for this is what I should be paid. And you could find hopefully you are being paid market rate, and that you're being fair and that the employer is being fair as well. No one likes a big back and forth negotiation part too. And there is that cap of how much you might be able to pay someone as well. So that's all consistent with the other people in their team, or consistent with what the market is too. And that you enter in with that employer in good faith, you accept that role after a small bit of negotiation perhaps, and then just see your career flourish within there. I think would be the best way of approaching it. On that front.
Yeah, I also quite like the idea of the the gratitude sandwich that people will talk about. It has another name which I'm not allowed to say on this podcast. We'll call it a gratitude sandwich. Where you start with, something good, what you want, finish on something good, and it's something like, thank you so much for the offer, would love to come and work for you, this is a role that I'm really excited about. I was hoping to get something more like this. Could we discuss this level of remuneration, or are there other soft benefits that we could discuss? Really look forward to hearing from you and discussing when I can get my boots on the ground and get into this role. Something like that. Is that a good tactic? Does it work, or does everyone see through the gratitude sandwich these days?
Gratitude sandwich. Yeah, no, that it can work. So you could be doing that with the recruitment agency, with HR, or directly with the hiring manager. So a few different ways. But if I started, because I'm coming from the recruitment side, there first is that the candidate's clear what they're looking for, and that we put them forward in good faith at what they're looking for. We don't want to go then back and forth, because that could put a bit of a sour taste in the client's mouth, or the candidates, if the expectations aren't met for both parties. So just be upfront and clear, and having done your own research. If it's directly with HR or with the hiring manager, I would encourage actually a conversation, because you want to be, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and lose out on the opportunity. So thank them very much for that. That's the first part of the gratitude sandwich, and what you, how positive you are about it, how you enjoyed meeting with people. And then if you feel it's a little bit light on the dollars, then that could be, look, I'm actually looking for this much, and then thank them at the end, and very much looking forward to starting. But I would encourage a phone call first, rather than just something that's written down and email back over, only because it can be misconstrued on the other side if they're reading it in black and white. But if it's a conversation, they can hear that genuine voice of yours when you're talking to them about that, and how encourage you are about wanting to accept the offer. Just want to make sure it can come up to what you might be looking for on that side, so there's no misunderstanding. Phone call would be best. However, before you start that phone call, I'd just write down a few bullet points of what you want to say, what you're looking for, and then again that thank you, what you're able to bring. Also, though, good employers will be able to match what you might be looking for if it's not too outrageous, or be able to explain why they couldn't. So if they're unable to meet, but you feel that it's fair overall, do accept it, shake their hand, and thank them for that time.
I like what you say there about a phone call first, because I cannot remember which company this was, but I remember reading an article about a company that had brought in a rule that was everything had to be talked about first, whether that was you walked over to someone's desk or you gave them a phone call, that everything had to be handled as much face-to-face as possible. And then it could be followed up by email, because of course email can be very helpful in terms of keeping a written record of things, but it was deal with it either in person or over the phone first, because they found that things would spiral much more on email, that things were taken the wrong way. There's no tone of voice, that things could be taken as quite aggressive when they really weren't meant that way. And office productivity went up. Everyone was a lot happier with that. It worked really well. And I think there's a lesson for that in everyone, right? That especially if you're having a conversation that could be a little difficult, being able to hear tone of voice is a really important communication strategy, right?
Oh, look, absolutely. And for some, it would be easier than for others as well. So, I think if you're quite hesitant, nervous about doing that, I'd encourage you to write down a couple of points that you would like to make and what you're looking for to ask for. Just you can refer back to it as a point of reference on that side. But I like that walking over to someone's desk and having a discussion, and the email really just confirmed in brief what was just being discussed there, rather than spiraling and other parties getting involved on that side as well. So you'd be surprised. I think the phone call is a secret weapon that can really help at that too. In particular, say if that hiring manager then needs to go to his or her hiring manager, or to HR, or to the CEO or CFO, and ask for this increase, he or she can go onto bats for you, asking for it, knowing that you showed initiative, you've spoken to them, and you're really genuine in what you're asking for, and a justification as to why you're asking for it, and otherwise are very, very keen to join the organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some great tips in there. Thank you so much. That's Simon Rooney from Find Recruitment. Now, if you have questions about this podcast or anything else to do with money, do send them through to me. You can find me on Facebook, Frances Cook Journalist, Twitter, Frances Cook, Instagram, Frances Cook NZ. I can't always get back to everyone individually, but I do read every single one of them and get them into future podcast episodes for you. You can also subscribe to Cooking the Books, go back and listen to old episodes that might answer your question anywhere. anyway, we're everywhere you would find podcasts, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And until next time, have a great day.